All right, on this episode of the LPDS, we get into some sports updates. We get into some TMZ-esque current events, I guess you can call it. Talk about a visit from an old friend. Talk about that in the Junction. Talk about 4th of July holiday. A lot of stuff going on here in the LPDS community. So get into all that, plus a Cage fact right now. All right, Jabronis, we're back. Welcome back to the Libretti Podcast Diary Show. I'm your host, Libretti, the show that talks about nothing but tries to find the lessons in everything, and we have a good time doing it. Hope everybody had a good week. Mine was pretty solid all around, all things considered. Busy, hectic. Had a visitor. Talk about that in the Junction. I'm trying to make this episode go by a little quicker as far as recording and getting everybody out of here on time. I have a deadline to meet. Trying to go see a movie with the creature, and I don't want to be late for that. And I procrastinated on a bunch of other stuff that needed to get done. So the recording, happened later in the week, in the day, and now here we are. So trust me, you're not missing anything if the episode is a few minutes shorter than the hour and 30 minutes that it usually is of me blabbing and flapping my gills. So anyway, a lot going on this week. I don't even know where to start with it all. Diddy found not guilty. I want to talk about this very quickly. People are up in arms for some reason, thinking that he was actually going to be found guilty of sex trafficking. And what people, I think, didn't pick up on or dismissed or didn't know altogether. And you could call this tinfoil hattie or what have you. But, it's a little suspect if you ask me. But the prosecutor on the Diddy trial, this most recent one that he got away with, was none other than ex-FBI Director James Comey's daughter. Okay? James Comey, the guy who just did the 8697 or whatever, 8647 shells in the beach thing, the guy who covered up a whole bunch of the 2016 election Russia stuff, the guy who weaponized the FBI and got caught for it all, that guy. His daughter, the prosecutor on the Diddy trial. Here's another thing that you guys might not have realized. That same daughter was also involved in the Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell cases as well. Okay? I know correlation does not mean causation, but you have the three highest profile child sex trafficking cases in history so far going on, all with the same lady on the prosecution team who happens to be the daughter of the FBI director who at the time was covering up and withholding Epstein's files. Remember, the current director, Kash Patel, said that New York City had all these Epstein files that they didn't actually turn over when they were required to years ago because Comey told them the whole lot to him. So, again, tinfoil hattie, sure. But you have to wonder. You have to scratch your head and think to yourself, could this have all been part of their plan to have the same lady be on the prosecution team with all this supposed evidence to go after these three people makes you think. But anybody who expected Diddy to get off to not get off scot-free is crazy. You could be mad, sure, but to think that he was actually going to be found guilty of this when you know he's got dirt on the big players, no chance. Hopefully, my man 50 Cent, however he pronounces his government name, hopefully he takes matters into his own hands, because he is anti-Diddy for sure, and he's been calling him out for years. So at least that's what my sister said. She wants 50 to take over. Shout out to my sister. It's her birthday this week. She's 72 years old. Doesn't look a day over 65. So happy birthday to my sister. All right, moving on. Baseball. Not talking Yankees. They stink. Okay? They are really not good. Also, I believe Clark Schmidt just tore his UCL, one of the pitchers on the Yankees, and he will need Tommy John surgery, it looks like. So he's out. Great. Everything's going according to plan for the Yankees. I want to talk about this Luis Ortiz. I don't know how to pronounce his first name. Randy, stop looking. Pitcher for the Indians. He is now under official investigation by the MLB for gambling and is apparently betting on his own performances. Now, there's no information just yet on whether he was betting on himself or in cahoots with somebody else to bet on him, or he was in trouble with somebody and he had to throw some games or whatever. I don't know for sure yet. I think it's him. I think it's him doing the betting and just getting involved in gambling on his own. But he got highlighted and essentially busted over only 2 pitches, where the odds of him throwing a ball on these in this at bat for that pitch in these 2 separate games were like something ridiculous. Plus 300, plus 500. I don't know what the odds were of him throwing a ball on those pitches. But the amount of bets that occurred for those 2 particular pitches was like off the charts. 2 huge outliers of people betting that he was going to throw a ball, and then he throws a ball. Both of those pitches. And I think FanDuel, maybe DraftKings, I don't know who else, probably FanDuel, saw the anomalies and were like, something's fishy here. And I guess they did some more digging and they're like, yeah, something's definitely fishy with this fella. We're going to launch a full investigation and open the books and see what's up with this guy. There's also a video of him throwing a pitch to Anthony Volpe. I told you I want to talk about the Yankees, but I lied. He's throwing a pitch to Anthony Volpe. Volpe swings and misses for like strike 3. Shocker. But this guy Ortiz gets not only visually pissed, but he yells, he drops an F-bomb after the pitch. He wasn't injured. He didn't miss his location. It was a strike. He didn't miss his location according to baseball, but it looks like according to him, he missed his location because he was trying to throw a ball, and now he was pissed because he got the strikeout, and I don't know if he bet himself on the under for K's for the amount of strikeouts that game or what, but he was not happy he struck out Volpe. What's funny to me about that whole thing is that Volpe is so bad right now, the poor bastard. He's so bad that he struck out against a guy who's actively trying to sabotage pitching. He's trying to pitch bad to make money off of it, and Volpe couldn't even let him pitch bad. He had to be a worse batter. Poor guy. Now with this Ortiz character, 2 things are problematic, I guess you could say. 2 rookie mistakes by this guy. One, looks like he either bet too much or told too many people what was going on with his betting situation. Sorry, if you're looking in YouTube land, I'm checking the audio to make sure everything is working okay because it sounds a little echoey on my end, but whatever. Anyway, first things first, those two pitches spiked so much. They spiked so much that it drove an investigation. You gotta get it dialed in, dude. Okay, if you're gonna be betting like this, you can't either be putting $50,000 down on this bet or telling everybody and their brother to place bets on this because that's ridiculous. You got to fly under the radar with this stuff. You can't be that stupid. Second rookie mistake. It seems like he's doing it himself. He's working alone, and what he didn't have in his corner was an Ipe. Okay? He did not have a fall guy, a trench guy, to not only cover his tracks and make it seem like he was the one betting, but to take so much responsibility and to fall on the grenade so hard that people would love this Ortiz fella. That's what he needed. And he didn't do any of that. He needed a guy to raise his hand and be like, no, it was actually me. Also, Ortiz didn't know that I was betting and using his money to bet on his performances. I was doing it on my own, and this is what happened. I got busted. I'll just confess and go to jail and get Harry carried into jail to cover up loose ends. And that way Ortiz not only gets off scot-free, but he's the love of the MLB. This victim, I feel so bad for him. Because that's what you got with Ohtani. Look, say what you want, but you can like him or hate Ohtani. As far as playing goes, I personally think I think he's worth the $700 million, but I don't think he's as good of a player. He's not worth the $700 million because he's the best player in the history of baseball. Sure, he's good. He doesn't really pitch much anymore. Not nearly as much, and he shouldn't. He should really just pick one position because he's short. He's going to shorten his career that way. But he's good. He's worth the money because he brings in the fan base. But if you look at his numbies are pretty, he bats like 268 to 290 average, which is fine. Gets a lot of home runs, sure. He steals a lot of bases, so I'll give him that. He is an absolutely above average great player. I don't think the money he's making is only because of his playing. It's because of the draw that he has. He's worth the money because of the draw. Aaron Judge is a much better player than him. Aaron Judge still doesn't bring the draw in that Ohtani does. Be that as it may, all that's to say is, like him or hate him, he ran the game the right way. Okay? He gambled his dick off. He gambled away $16 million of his own money, which should have popped all the radars and red flags. And when it did, where did those flags go to? His Ipe, his trench guy. The guy, I don't know if he paid him or maybe Ohtani's gang has Ipe's family hostage or something, but he got a guy to not only raise his hand and take the fall for him, but also admit to this cockamamie story that he stole $16 million from Ohtani, and Ohtani didn't even know about it. It was all completely behind his back. He didn't know, and he's the perma victim, and now he's a hero. And he got off not just scot-free, but he is the hero of the MLB. They love him. That's what Ortiz needed to do, and he didn't do that. I don't know. Again, I don't know if he's stupid or just cocky or just thought it was only going to be 2 times. That's it. I don't know. But he really blew it. He blew it for a lot of other people trying to do the same thing. And I have to imagine there's more people doing this too. We'll see if they're as stupid as this Luis Ortiz guy. But 2 pitches. It only took 2 pitches for them to be like, something's off. This guy's done for. And he had no trench guy. He had no eBay. Well, what a boneheaded move. Not the gambling. Everybody's gambling. Just like everyone's probably on some sort of PED in sports, everyone's gambling in some way, shape, or form. But they're not doing it themselves and putting all their money on 2 pitches, you idiot. Also, why are you betting on yourself to walk Volpe? Bet on yourself to strike him out. That's the guarantee. You want the guaranteed win? Strike out Volpe. Poor bastard stinks. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that. Moving on. Happy 4th of July, everybody. I always forget this stuff ahead of time. We're past 4th of July. That happened last Friday. I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday. Worked out nicely right off a weekend, nice extended weekend for everybody. Hope everybody did something they enjoyed, relaxed. It was a little bit overcast here for me, so I did some yard work, but I didn't get to lay out. I don't like to lay out in the overcast. I like heat and sun because then I can bake quick. 10 minutes each side. Olive oil up, 10, out the door. You got a nice little crisp to you. Like a good searing. Overcast is dangerous game. You go tanning in overcast, you're gambling without an Ipe. Because it doesn't feel that hot. There's no sun directly on you. So you're like, I could stay out here all day. The next thing you know, you're an absolute lobster because nothing but UV rays get through the clouds, get through the overcast. So you're literally getting cooked and you don't even know it. And then you wake up the next day or you go take a shower and you're Mr. Krabs. So I don't like doing that. But I'm hoping, obviously I'm recording before this weekend's over, but I'm hoping that the weekend does bring some sun enough for me to, again, crisp up a little bit. Keep the foundation, keep the foundational tan going. So I hope everybody was able to do that. Like I said, it was my sister's birthday, so I think they did some stuff at my parents' house and went to the lake and enjoyed their time there. So that was cool. I wish I was there for that, but I don't, me and birthdays, don't care about them. It's just another day. Good job staying alive another year. Great work. All right. That's all I got on the 4th of July. I don't care about, obviously the social media people are going to have their politics involved in it. Shut up. If you have that, like, I always go back to this. Okay? If it's that much of an issue for you to live here and fear for your life that much, move. Well, I can't move. Can't afford to. Can't do this. Then shut up. Okay? If you're not in a position to take action, then shut up. Then you're all talk. Shut up. Okay? You don't have to like it here. I'm not saying you're wrong. I disagree with you. I do think that this is the best country to live in, despite our problems and our corrupt government. Sure. So I don't judge you for disagreeing or for having a different opinion and not liking it here, but either move or shut the hell up. That's it. And here's why I think most of it is hypocrisy and malarkey and bullshit. Because the people who have the financial ability to move, that complain about it, and this is dangerous, it's terrible, I can't stand it here, it's going down the shitter, this is not a happy Independence Day at all, they're also not moving. They're not leaving either. So it's all ball wash in my opinion. Just shut up. That's it. Move or shut up. Don't care. Like, Don't care either way. But stop bothering people about it. Okay? I don't sit here and talk to my friends constantly about shit I hate, but I'm not doing anything to change my circumstances. I would have no friends left. And I shouldn't have any friends left if I only did that. If you do nothing but complain, but also do nothing to advance your position, and you're just sitting there whining and bitching and moaning, then shut up. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to be associated with that. So we can either change the subject or we can just separate amicably and be done, because that shit's annoying. If you have a problem, that's fine. Got it. Everybody has problems we have to deal with, and it is nice to vent about them every once in a while. But if you're not doing anything to solve the problems that you have, and you're blaming everybody else for them, you think you're just a perma victim, and you're just sitting there crying and whining about it, that's when I have the problem. So if you hate it so much, do something about it. Or shut up. That's it. Pretty simple. Okay? So anybody who had a miserable 4th of July, I'm sorry you had a miserable 4th of July. Maybe you'll have a better 4th of July, in France or Libya or with your friends in Hamas, in Palestine. Maybe you'll have a better 4th of July there. Let me know how it is. I don't want to go. I'm too scared to go there. So I'm good right here. Anyway, let's get into the good stuff. Stupid. Step into the cage.
Okay, let's run.
All right. Today's Into the Cage segment is proudly sponsored by Slump Busters Bar and Grill. Have you been in a slump in your respective sport or profession and can't seem to get out of it no matter what you do? Then stop over at Slump Busters and you'll be hitting dingers again in no time. Slump Busters is a Michelin-rated bar and grill employed by only America's finest buxom beauties who can mix up an old-fashioned while serving you an old-fashioned to get that confidence back in no time. And don't forget to try the wings. They're the best in the state. So to bust that slump today, visit Marianne and the gals at Slump Busters on the corner of Volpe Ave and Chris Davis Boulevard. And if you use the promo code MuffinTop, you'll get 29% off your first visit. Slump Busters has a whole in-depth ad campaign that is too long to go into in this sponsor read while we step into the cage. But they have a pretty robust operation. Marianne is the lead waitress there, and they're gonna get you right. They're gonna tell you how to get out of your slumps. They're gonna force it out of you, if you will. They got a lot going on. We could talk a lot. There's gonna be a lot about Slump Busters, so stay tuned. Maybe some merch too. Anyway, cage fact. Why did this? Oh, here we go. Okay. I write the notes on my computer on the facts and stuff like that, and I thought it auto reverted back to last week's lookalike contest discussion when Corey Davis dressed as Nic Cage Surfer. But it didn't. I just it was a mistype. Anyway, Nic Cage, as you know, did that movie Vampire's Kiss. He's done a lot of movies where most of his movies that you all can remember are very cagey. Every movie has at least one scene where it's like, this is where Nic Cage steps out of the cage. He is unleashed. That's what makes him the best to ever do it. Because no matter how bad the movie is, how bad or good it is, you're at least gonna get at least one scene of prime Cage. But his first movie that he really actually let himself out was Vampire's Kiss. And he said in an interview that it was his favorite movie to film, not his favorite movie that he's made, but his favorite to film because it was the first movie that he was able to unleash full Cage. They gave him they took off the training wheels, they detached a leash, and they said, just go see what happens. And it's funny because nobody knew what to expect. They were just like, oh, Nic Cage is doing pretty good at acting. Raising Arizona was pretty good, wild and funny. He was, he had a bit part in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. Let him go in Vampire's Kill. Let's see what's going on in Vampire's Kills. What's the worst that can happen? What's the craziest thing that can happen here? And it was like when Michael Jackson did the moonwalk for the first time. Like, you didn't know, like, oh, I heard he does this moonwalk and it's unbelievable dance move. Hopefully he shows it. Or like, Blue Steel, where Ben Stiller in Zoolander, Derek Zoolander is talking about he's got the Blue Steel look, but it's not ready to be unleashed. But people know it exists and they're waiting for it. It was like the moonwalk. Nobody knew the moonwalk existed until Michael Jackson actually did it. He didn't tease it out there or anything. Nic Cage did not tease out his style of acting, the Nic Cage greatness, beforehand. I was like, hey, I got something cooking. As soon as a director lets me go off leash, I'm going. No. Nobody knew. The directors didn't know. The producers screamed out. Nobody knew. So they were just like, have at it. And then Nic Cage had at it. He mixed in old school Nosferatu walking as a vampire. He ate a live cockroach. He did the ABCs. He changed his voice accent. Absolutely unhinged movie. And it's really a canon moment in the Nic Cage universe because you can go back and watch the movie and know this is the moment that he really turned himself into the best to ever do it. Now, obviously, he got better and cagier throughout the years up until now, but it would have never happened. That was the moment that he got unleashed, and that changed the name of the game, because everybody else after that was just trying to keep up with him. So you could go back and watch that movie. It's a crazy movie. Silly, stupid, ridiculous movie. He had a one-night stand, was like drunk and high or whatever, and thought he turned into a vampire. And that's the whole movie. Him thinking he's a vampire and he's not. It's crazy. It's awesome. But you go back to that, and then you look at movies beforehand, and you're like, this is it. You could tell now. You couldn't tell it at the time, but now you can go back and look and be like, Raising Arizona, good movie. Moonstruck, good movie. Vampire's Kiss, oh, shit. This is the difference. This is the X factor here. This is the moment that Nic Cage unleashed Super Saiyan Cage. And from then on, it was, the rest is history. So there you go. That's the Cage fact. You're welcome. Moving on over to the Junction. Spin the logo up. Union boss, union leader Dom DeLaPia was in town in Texas for a visit this week. It was a short visit. 24 hours, 48, and not even 2 full days. And initially, we didn't have time to record an episode of the LPDS or even the Libretti Leadership Lab for that matter, but we spent our time catching up with each other on life and shit like that, and we didn't really talk about it and think about taking the time to record. It was a busy time. He was not here to visit. He was here for a funeral. So it was not about let's catch up, shoot the shit, hang out, go do stuff around town, record, whatever. I honestly, in the beginning, thinking about it initially, I didn't even want to record or bring it up because I wasn't sure if he was going to bring his creepy little pal Mickey Mouse with him because I didn't want that weird pedophile vibe on the show. I also didn't want the LPDS universe to universally eviscerate that character. So at first I was like, I'm not even going to bring it up. But it was too busy. There was too much going on anyway. We didn't have time to actually do that, which is, well, next time. But it was a good time catching up. But he came here for a funeral, and that's what I wanted to talk about a little bit. It was an Air Force mentor of his. I didn't know the guy. He mentioned to me a few years ago that his old mentor retired from the Air Force and moved back to Houston, where he's from. His family wanted to move back. He's been gone for years, and his family said, you abandoned us for 30 years, and we want you back." So he moved back, and he within 5 years of retiring, passed away, drank himself to death. And it was a sad state of affairs for a number of reasons. And there's a lesson here, but he was a chief master sergeant in the Air Force. So anybody who doesn't know the military ranks, or at least on the Air Force side, there's the enlisted side and the officer side. Officers are, they outrank all the enlisted members, technically speaking, but the chief master sergeant rank is the highest enlisted rank you can hold in the Air Force. There's not many of them out there. You have to really you have to be really good and put your time in as well to be a chief master sergeant. And it's one of the most respected ranks in the Air Force as well. Even though it's enlisted and technically speaking, a year, second lieutenant who's been in the Air Force for a year technically outranks a chief master sergeant who's been in for 25, 30 years. The chief master sergeant holds the respect and holds the court, even though he has to salute that lieutenant. That chief master sergeant, that's the position. That's the highest enlisted position you can get, and they're few and far between, and even fewer far between these days of high quality chief master sergeants. And that's not dogging on the other chiefs out there, but as you know, just like in every other job and career and what have you, not every leader, not every high-ranking position is actually deserving of that position. Okay, just because you're a CEO doesn't mean you're the Steve Jobs or the preeminent CEO that everybody should be looking up to. That doesn't happen all the time, unfortunately. That's real life. But this guy was one of the good ones. And he spent 30 years of his life in the Air Force. And that's why I wanted to talk about him. Like I said, I didn't know him, but he deserved, a guy like him deserved a lot more attention and respect and celebration of his life and accolades than he received. He died at like 55 years old. Something like that. It wasn't he didn't off himself. He didn't do it himself. He got out of the Air Force and lost his purpose and took to the bottle, and that was that. I'm not going to reveal his name or get too in depth because I don't want to disrespect him or his family, but I believe he deserves to be honored a lot more so than he got. but he spent the majority of his life serving his country and having an impact on on other airmen and spouses and families and people. His whole adult life was dedicated to serving others and mentoring others and being an example for others. And the Union boss was the only man in uniform to be there at his service. And that's, again, that's not dogging on the other people. This guy didn't have social media. He had no connection to the people he served with and mentored during his time in the military. They couldn't keep in touch with him because, again, he had no social media presence. He came back to his family in Texas, a family who unfortunately had little to no understanding or grasp of the life he lived and the impact he had on so many. And I think unfortunately that contributed to his sort of loss of purpose when he got out. You know, when you stay in anything that long, you become institutionalized. We sort of joked about it, Union boss and I, but you get the Brooks syndrome. You get Brooksed from Shawshank Redemption. His whole adult life, 30 of his 50 years of living, was Air Force, military, hacking the mish. And he goes from that to nothing. He went from the highest enlisted rank you can possibly be in the military to essentially a nobody on the outside. He changed worlds. It's like if Aaron Judge left baseball to go to the stock market and try to be a broker. No, it's a different world. He went from the best of the best to a nobody. And like I said, it's not that, again, no disrespect to friends and family or whatever, but his family just didn't understand the life he lived. When he came back, I have to imagine that they remembered, he came back and he was still the 18-year-old family member that they knew that left initially. Except he wasn't. And there was, the understanding wasn't there. The connection wasn't there for them. There was two different worlds, and they never molded together to realize that. And he went down the dark road. And he passed on. And they had a service, and they had, he was buried at the National Cemetery here in Texas. And they had, they played taps. They did the 21 gun salute. And it was sad. I stood in the background of that, and it was sad to see because I feel like the guy probably felt a little bit like, what was it all for? He left that life, he retired to nothing. To see me, he probably felt like he was the bottom of the barrel again and couldn't get out, couldn't climb out. And his family and friends locally couldn't help him because they didn't know. They just didn't know. And it's sad because that guy impacted so many people. The Union boss was an enlisted member at the time when he first met this guy. Now he's a commander of a whole squadron. Commissioned as an officer, became a commander. And he's leading and mentoring his guys and gals using the same principles and values as this chief did. He's a direct product of this guy's quality mentorship over the years. And that guy he didn't even know about it. He didn't even get to see that, or nobody told him like this was the impact you had. Nobody was able to show him that, hey, you did a lot. You impacted a lot of people positively. You changed lives. You matter. Be proud of yourself. We're here, we're here to help you dig out of this hole. He couldn't get any of that, and he didn't get much of any of that. And just the thought of him passing, thinking that about himself, that breaks my heart. I was tearing up during taps thinking about that. You wish this guy knew just how much he mattered to people. And the thought of him thinking the opposite, really, it breaks my heart. And it goes to sort of the lesson I really want to talk about here is there's about, I'm being realistic here as much as possible, 75 to 85% of our lives, at least in the Air Force, in our careers in the Air Force, is very much comparative to the corporate civilian world. Very similar in the sense it's, day to day, you're showing up to an office, you have a supervisor, you're sitting in a cubicle, you're clacking away on a computer. Most of it is paperwork, admin sort of stuff. The day-to-day stuff is very similar in that regard. There is that 15 to 25% difference that's vastly different, combat, operational training and readiness, conducting missions, doing stuff like that. That's different, but it's objective as I can be, given that my career has been mainly military. There's a lot of similarities in that world. The big difference, besides the combat stuff, is that impact you have on the people. The way you need to be as a leader, and how you have to lead, and who you have to lead in the military. You're leading teams that do have that small percentage chance of putting their lives in danger. Fortunately, you just don't have that working as an IT, as a network admin for JP Morgan or something like that, or working for a bank, or working at a tech startup or something like that. Fortunately for them, they don't have that, but the military folks do. And their actions and their words and how they conduct themselves as leaders impacts so many people in so many different ways that affect their ability to do that portion of the job, that violence, that combat, that mission, operational stuff that you don't see on the civilian side. And this guy did that for 30 years and then had to come back to a different world that did not understand that. Did not understand that his impact was not just babysitting young people and making sure the paperwork got done on time. It was preparing men and women to do their jobs well in the face of the most dangerous situations you could possibly be in. Even though a small percentage of that actually does happen, you have to be ready for it, because it can happen in that world. And he did that for 30 years. And and I don't think enough people truly understand that, or they take it too much for granted when they have friends or family members who served that long in the military, or even half that, and they just think, oh, this guy just did a job, or this gal just did a job for 10, 20, 30 years, and now they just moved on to something else, they retired or whatever. It's more than that. It's just different, and they're going to sit with that for a number of reasons. They're going to sit with that internally, and they're going to, they're going to bury that as deep as they can, because it's a lot easier to just bury that than to try to explain to your friends and family who don't have that experience, who don't have the military time, exactly what it is that you did. Because you can explain it till you're blue in the face. It's very tough for people to actually understand that when they haven't physically experienced it. I get that. It's tough to empathize with that. Just like it's tough for me to empathize with people in the corporate world at times, because I haven't, I'm not a banker. I've never done banking. I don't know the problems you had to deal with, or the implications of mistakes and failures and this and that. I can try my best, but there's still going to be a little bit of a disconnect. So even though there is that disconnect, the lesson here is we all have our shit going on in our lives. And this is for not just military, but for everybody. As long as you're not a murderer or a criminal or whatever, be empathetic and kind and understanding of people. And know that if maybe they're being quiet or shy, or maybe they're even being a dickhead, and you're like, oh, my cousin's a real dick, I don't like talking to him because whatever. Just take the second. Just take a quick second to be like, well, I also don't know what's going on in there. Like I said, this is true for everybody, but especially the military folks who have been brooksed, who have been institutionalized like that, and they come home to their family. He came home to his family because he felt like, I spent so much time away from them, I want to come back home and be with my family. And he was still feeling isolated, like he was alone, because the understanding is just not there. They never, and it's tough to crack. Even if you ask, hey, tell me tell me what's going on, what you did. I want to understand. It's still going to be tough to crack. So I know there's going to be people out there like, well, I ask my friends all the time and they won't tell me, or they won't talk about it. I get that. It's tough, but some grace is still appreciated for people like that. Some kindness and understanding. You might be dealing with a dickhead. You might be dealing with an angry old bastard who's stubborn, and maybe you work at a doctor's office, and this patient is just a real asshole. But you don't know what's going on with them. And I always like to say, try to take the time to think about if somebody reacted to you, if you were being short with somebody, if you had your bad day and you're dealing with your shit that you got going on in your life, and then someone was impatient or not understanding with you, how would that make you feel? What would you say? You have no idea what's going on in my life to be reacting this way and treating me like an asshole too. If you knew what I was dealing with, you'd be a little bit more understanding. That's what most of us say. I have these conversations a lot with friends and family and people I work with. They say the same thing. They don't understand what I'm dealing with. Otherwise, they wouldn't be acting like this. And you're absolutely right. They don't understand what you're dealing with. And you don't understand what they're dealing with. So that grace and empathy and kindness that you want from them, at the very least, you can give it back. And if you do that just a little bit each day, your life's going to be better. And who knows the positive impact you're going to have on somebody. This guy met and worked with the union boss 15, 20 years ago. And 15, 20 years later, the union boss is using his mentorship to lead his squadron now. That guy's impact spanned 20 years for just one guy. And he was doing it for 30 years, this chief. So imagine the other people he impacted because he had grace and kindness and understanding, and he was a good leader and a good mentor. But because he left that world and went back to a world that didn't have that understanding and empathy, he felt alone. He felt lost. He felt like he had no impact on the world. He felt like 30 years for what? And he turned to the only thing he thought was going to help the pain go away. And it didn't. All it did was leave pain behind for everybody else that he impacted to feel and deal with. And that shit breaks my heart. That shit really breaks my heart. That this guy served and made sacrifices that I even can't understand. I cannot fathom some of the stuff that I'm sure he had to do in his 30 years. He was 30 years in the military. That's every war that most of us who have been alive to witness, with the exception of maybe Desert Storm, if you were born in the 80s and before. Every modern day war and conflict and combat operation he was in the military for. And that's what hurts. People don't talk about the military lives lost outside of combat. The numbers that the government pushes and they harp on, the VA, harps on, everybody in the public eye harps on, oh, well, we lost like 2,000 people in the war in Iraq and Afghanistan. That's nothing compared to Vietnam and World War II. And yeah, in combat, sure. But there's still 15 to 25 veterans committing suicide every day. There's still thousands and thousands and thousands of veterans who are dealing with addiction and alcoholism and homelessness because they left and they felt forgotten after. And I get it. Maybe your families haven't forgotten, the families haven't forgotten them. I'm not trying to dog on everybody's family is just dogging on the military and forgetting about the veterans. I'm not saying that at all. But it's hard to not feel that way at least a little bit when you get out of the military after giving your life, your adult life to it. The VA doesn't do anything for you. You could try to get money out of them, but good luck trying to get actual medical treatment for your problems, your PTSD, your traumatic brain injuries, all this stuff that you got to deal with. The government sure doesn't give a shit about you after you're out. Once the contract's up, you're dead to them. Good luck. They'll call you if they feel they accidentally paid you an extra cent for your time and make sure that they get that cent back. That's it. So I understand why people feel that way. They feel forgotten. And then if you're not in a circle of at least a couple of people who show you that grace and kindness and empathy, I see how this guy turned to the bottle, did what he did. And it's just, again, for the thousandth time, it breaks my heart to see it because he's not the only one. There are many more out there doing that. So think about that a little bit in your daily lives. Think about when you're dealing with arguing with somebody, or you got an angry stranger that you're dealing with, an angry customer, whatever it is that you're up against. Just understand, just remember, you don't know what they got going on in their lives. And maybe it takes one person to show them that grace and kindness and empathy and understanding to change the trajectory of their lives for the better. To have that impact that this guy had on so many for 30 years that he didn't even realize. He didn't even get to see the impact he had on so many people. And that's all I got to say about that. Before we go, kind of talking about it a little bit anyway right now. Before we go, the big three, the three pillars of staying strong and being a better, happier, kinder, healthier, less stressed, more genuine human being. Being able to spread that positivity and goodness throughout the land. Number one, exercise every day. Do one thing every day to improve your fitness and health physically, mentally, or emotionally. It's very simple to do one thing, and you'll feel better. Trust me. Number two, the hardest one to do, don't be a shitty, negative, crappy person. Be a kind person. And the opportunity arises to be shitty and negative and crappy and bring chaos to the world. Take a deep breath, take the LPDS step back, and omit yourself from that situation. Remove yourself from the situation. Detach from those negative emotions. Think about what we just talked about. Trying to understand where that person may be coming from that you want to be shitty to. Just realizing that you don't know what's going on in their lives. That's all you have to do. Once you have that realization, be like, I don't know what else this person's dealing with and why they're acting like this, but it could be serious. It could be a serious reason why. So I'm not going to add to the shit. Even though he's being a dick to me or she's being shitty to me and disrespectful, it's not worth it. Give him that grace. That way you're minimizing the negativity in the world around you and in the ether, and you're allowing yourself the capacity to go focus on more positive, productive things in your life. And you're setting a good example for others around you, which has a positive impact on others. So it's a win-win-win just by not being shitty. Number three, the most important one, be genuinely thankful and grateful for all the good you have in your lives. And you could do this by thinking of one good thing or one person, one good person, one good experience that you had in your life, and think about what your life would be like without that and how shitty and negative and bad it would be. And that'll immediately put you in a state of gratitude as opposed to taking things for granted and assuming everything is going to be hunky-dory in life. And if you couple that with not being a shitty person and being a kind person, and you couple that with exercising every day, I promise you guys, you do that a little bit each and every day, daily. Repetition, repetition, repetition. I promise you, you'll be a better, happier, kinder, healthier, less stressed, more genuine human being. You'll be able to spread that positivity and goodness to all those around you and throughout the land. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Don't forget to like and subscribe and tell your friends and enemies. Hit the hotline, 202-670-1114. If you're into the leadership side of life and you like this style, you like the Libretti style of providing value to you, check out the Spearhead Leaderships podcast, Libretti Leadership Lab. It's on YouTube, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify. It's the same style. You still get Libretti, but we talk about leadership and getting better overall in life. So check that out if you want to. Otherwise, stay here. Call that hotline, 202-670-1114. Give us your questions. Give us your feedback. Give us your shitty Mickey Mouse impressions. Give us your trolling, whatever. We're here for it. 202-670-1114. Thank you guys again. I love you all. Stay strong.